Welcome back. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm John Lincove.
And I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm really excited this week because we were talking about a car that people have been waiting to hear about for a long time, and then they've been talking about a lot ever since it hit the market. It is the new Chevy Blazer EV. So this car was in the news for a long time before it even hit the market. It was on GM's new EV platform, which is called Ultium, and it basically, GM gave it a fancy name for the battery and the underlying design of the car. It's shared with the Lyriq. It's basically what's going to underpin every GM EV going forward. So this is kind of our first taste of that technology from the mainstream Chevy brand. It's an SUV. So we bought one. After a long wait, we finally got it. We brought it back, and oh boy, it is not fully baked.
Yeah, that or the Cadillac Lyriq, right?
Yeah. We'll get to that one another week. But so first of all, there's a stop sale on it as of right now. So if you even wanted to buy one,
that's never good.
No, that's not good. That's not good. We'll get to that later. But we have been driving ours because we got ours before the stop sale. A lot of other automotive journalists have had issues with theirs. John, you spent some time in it. What are some of the glitches you've encountered?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. You start out in a car and you're just like, bang it. Just, hit it with a stick.
Yeah.
So driving it, the issues I had was software with the infotainment system and the gauge cluster and the dash display. So flickering screens, screens that wouldn't just flicker, but they would repeat. So you would have like a cycle of images just rotating through. It's all touch screen almost. I mean, almost every control is operated through the screen. So you couldn't get to a home. You couldn't change that. It was affecting the heads-up display. It was affecting the gauge cluster, where you would just have things rotate through one side of the three parts of the gauge cluster in front of you. So that was really the key thing that I experienced. So you're stuck on a radio station, for example, or you're stuck, trying to edit a map, a destination, and since it doesn't use Apple CarPlay
that's
or
a big
Android
deal.
Auto, you're forced to use the system, the Google system that's there. So it's not as if like, I could flip up the phone, I could prop the phone. Yes, not perfect, but if you're lost, you could at least maybe you're running the phone already, is mirroring it. No, you're not mirroring anything there. So you're using the system and it's not working, or you can't edit it. So it just, all that's happening while you're going on. Volume was loud, that was the biggest thing, is that it's just like, how is that delivered? Like, how is it such a software issue and delivered that way?
But even when it is working, so this is the first kind of new vehicle from GM. They've come out and said, we're not going to put CarPlay or Android Auto in our cars. No mirroring on your phone anymore. It's all going to be built in. And in some vehicles like Rivian and Tesla, especially with EVs, that's kind of good thing. You get a state of charge. You can find charging stations and plan your route for it. I found that, the software that was in there, for all the fanfare, the software, when it worked, felt kind of half-baked.
Yeah.
You couldn't put in destinations sort of ahead of time and have it suggest chargers. You had to be kind of low on battery on the road and then search for it. That button to hit to search for a destination was teeny tiny. I mean, there are all kinds of like little things, the menus behind the steering wheel.
Right.
You were telling me that the buttons go in different directions?
Yeah. So, I mean, so the first thing with you were talking about navigation, it's a really tiny search field. So, you're driving, you're sitting in the driveway, okay? You want to put in, enter it because you couldn't do it while driving. It's tiny. It's finding this little field to click to finally open up the
And it's a huge screen.
It's a giant screen. To finally open up the large keyboard to type it in it's maddening why a screen maybe this wide has a box about that big. Just a very odd oversight in that there's buttons on the back of ours that on the left side of the rear steering wheel, it controls the presets up and down, and on the right side's volume. And on the front, on the right side, it's a button that will control presets as well. And the back left and the front right work in opposite. So down is up on the, if you're looking at the screen, for example, you have, let's just say you have, a station number 34, station 35, station 36. Using this, it'll go down, but using the buttons behind, the same button will make it go up. It makes no sense why the front and the back work in opposite directions. Like how did that pass through? And it's not exclusive to the Blazer either. It's GM's new software.
I think just the lack of Apple CarPlay alone might be enough for me to not buy a car, right?
Same here.
We've gotten so used to it. Obviously, we're in new cars all the time, but now it's to the point where pretty much every test car we get into, we're going to immediately either plug it in or sync it with CarPlay or Android Auto, and they work great. Why would you change, right? Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Like, if people love them and they're easy to use and we're used to it, I think for me, I don't think I would want to even buy it if it doesn't have that.
Or it's a rental car. You get into it, and all of a sudden you have to learn this new. I realize we're in a unique situation where we're swapping in cars.
That's not normal.
But at the same time, if you can have everything on your phone, why replicate all that processing power poorly? On it, if it worked better.
If the whole point of Android Auto and Apple CarPlay is you're very used to your phone, why not put that same interface up on the screen?
And you're logged in constantly. You're not worrying about that. So, I mean, the system wants you to log in for Spotify, wants you to log in for this, wants you to log in for every app. And it goes almost to the Consumer Reports feeing of America, what the fee type of thing that we worked at, and you could find on consumerreports.org. Since that everybody wants to monetize every darn thing out there. And GM thinks that they're going to pull in a ton of money through this. I hope that the incremental money that they get from that is able to offset the fact that people like you or someone else will just say, well, I'm not going to buy your car.
Yeah. I mean, aside from that, charging it, it does not charge. It charges more quickly than some of the vehicles out there, faster than the BZ4X, faster than the Leaf, faster than the Aria,
Nissan Aria.
Gosh, and but slower than the Hyundai and Kia vehicles, and slower than some of the, obviously and this is an expensive vehicle. Ours is about $60,000 for a Blazer. The interior feels like a $35,000 Blazer. It doesn't feel like
it's definitely not up to $60,000 levels of quality, and the Cadillac Lyriq isn't that much more money, and it's considerably nicer inside. It also drives better too. Like you said, we'll get to that in another podcast, but there is that to think about as well. And there's some things about this, just the stiff ride alone. It's way too stiff. And when you think about I think most customers would give up some body roll because it goes through corners in terms of body roll stays very flat. Like that part they got. But then there's also this, maybe the most vague steering I felt in years in a car. Like it just tells you nothing about what the car is doing. So it stays flat, but you don't really know what the front end's doing. But I think customers would give up some body roll to get a more comfortable, ride. And it also makes there's suspension noises. As you encounter bigger bumps, and there's just way too many hard hits come through. I think and it just makes it feel unrefined. It's also, it has 288 horsepower, but it weighs a little over 5,200 pounds. So it's for an EV, it's just not that speedy feeling we're so used to EVs, and again, we're not normal. We are in all kinds of EVs.
I mean, we're really not normal, but we're also,
look at us. But it doesn't feel that fast. You know what I mean? We're used to this. Whoa, you just don't get that with this thing.
And I can live with that in the sense of this belief, EVs they have to be fast because they have to get people in, and if they're not fast, people aren't going to buy it. No. We don't need every car to be Ferrari-esque. We don't need every car to be a 0 to 60 monster. Actually, if it's better for the battery and it's better for range, let's back off on the fact. I'm okay with some of the Audi and Volkswagen ones, for example, and that they just don't have that snap off the line, that we've seen from other vehicles, and I'm good with that. But don't market it as an RS and market it showing that it's fast, and then it's really, in reality, it's not.
Well, and it's more than that, even though it's I'm agree with the kind of EVs that try and snap your neck off the line. You don't need that, and this is very smooth. Actually, there are some good things, and we should talk about those good things too, such as what a good job they did with the tuning of the accelerator pedal. Which, of course, if you're doing one pedal driving, that accelerator pedal tuning is now deceleration as well, and they did a really good job on that. You can, if you have some consciousness about the one pedal driving, and what I mean by that is you can't just let off the accelerator pedal. We're so used to doing that, but you can't do that with an EV if you're in one pedal driving. But if you use a little bit of concentration, you can drive this car pretty smoothly, and for the most part come to a stop, without even having to use the brake pedal. But back to the power. While it's fine to be smooth and not that, rip your neck off the line, when you're 60 miles an hour and above and you punch it, that's when you do notice that this is only 288 horsepower trying to move a pretty heavy vehicle.
And there's not the ability to mode change easily. It's all in the screen.
Yeah.
There's one thing if it's a button on the steering wheel. It's one, just like you would have with regenerative. You could adjust the regeneration, etc. It's real easy. When it's not, when it's a screen, when it's this, when it's a fly out, that defeats the purpose. Just because you can put it there and have a very clean interface doesn't mean you should do that.
Can we speak about one more thing about dynamically? Is that the brakes? So
they're good.
These might be the easiest to operate friction brakes, meaning forget the one pedal driving for a second. The actual brake pedal, when you step on it, it feels normal. And we're seeing most EVs, there's either some sponginess, or when the regenerative braking comes on, it comes on too strong and you have to constantly modulate. These are maybe the best ones I've ever driven. And so you got to give them credit for that. They really did get some things right, but they also got some things really wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I drove this in stop and go traffic, and I really did appreciate that, but I still couldn't wait to get out of the car because things just, I couldn't find things that I needed to find. And I spent enough time with it that I felt like I should have known this, been able to figure it out.
I would, if I could jump in one thing, just, to follow up on what you're talking about as far as one pedal driving. I mean, I drove it on a lot of windy roads through and for people who are in Connecticut, the West Hartford to Simsbury to Avon area, going hiking, and very easy to drive these windy roads with one pedal. It's not always the thing with some EVs.
Right. Sometimes you really have to concentrate.
You really have to concentrate, or just take the mode off completely and drive like a traditional vehicle. So I mean, again, to hit that, really, it's one thing to drive one pedal when you're on the highway and it works, or in town and it's very slow speed. This worked very well following someone who was in a regular car, a conventional gas powered car.
Right.
Yeah, and some of these things are things they're going to be able to fix through a software update. I hope there are a few things. I mean, maybe even the numb steering. They might even be able to fix that through a software update. A couple of other things. I mean, something I noticed, the place where the USB charging ports were located. I know there's wireless charging, but if you have more than one person, you might want to plug it in. And there's this big, deep sort of chasm between the two seats, with a sliding door on the top, and that's where the USB chargers are. And if you plug it in, you can't close the door because the USB ports are just like a quarter of an inch too high. Right. And I tried it with different cables. There was no way around it. If you'd slam into the cables and break them, you couldn't close it.
Yep.
Why couldn't they move it a quarter of an inch, a half an inch? I mean, that's just that attention to detail.
What cable were they using that it didn't cause a problem? And please sell that.
Yeah, sell it with a car.
Because there's an issue there.
And if we're talking about controls and stuff like that, where the emergency flashers button is ridiculous. It's dangerous, right? The emergency flashers button is there in an emergency that's why some automakers make them they're like this large in the center of the screen, bright red button. This one is way up here with the other SOS buttons and everything, and it's small, and you should never have to look up to press your emergency flashers. That's crazy and dangerous.
It's a bad trend. A lot of, I mean, I know we're stepping off the car, but where I'm stepping off the car, I've seen that trend a lot. A lot of automakers, they're hiding it, and it's tiny.
Right.
And I don't understand, again, why it has to be like that. It's if someone's not buying your car because of that aesthetic, then that's on them, not on the auto manufacturer. They should be making something that's reachable and readable, especially in an emergency.
Yeah. Now, to go back to that whole stop sale thing.
Yes.
So after a bunch of reports of issues with this vehicle from a bunch of folks, Edmunds had some issues. Kevin Williams at Inside EVs had some issues.
Reddit is all over.
Oh, yeah. The forums for this car are interesting to take a look at. So GM put a stop sale. You can't buy it at the dealers. They're coming out with a software fix. They didn't say when the software fix would be, but when we reached out to GM, thank you, John, they did say that the software problems were not related to the Google built-in or the Ultium design. So the two kind of pillars of this car, they said it has nothing to do with that. Okay. They said, we're aware that a portion of owners have had some software issues. Our team's working quickly to roll out a fix, and owners will be contacted with further information on how to schedule their update. And GM apologizes for the inconvenience. We're going to get it done as soon as we possibly can.
It's just. I mean, that's your statement, and okay. I mean, thank you to GM for telling us, giving that information. But I mean, between reports of slow charging and the entire interface not working,
And it feels rushed too, in a lot of different ways. So when we bought ours, I know you had to deal with this. So the back seats, the seat belt buckles were sort of tucked. It's like an old New York taxi cab. Right. Stuff the seat belt buckles behind the seats, but they were like that when we picked up the car.
Right.
And that's something someone's supposed to catch, right?
That's something someone should have caught at the assembly line for sure. The dealership should have caught it. Even our mechanic, Mike Crossan, who's on the show, he said he should have caught that in check-in as well. But that's not his fault, right? I mean,
it's not on the consumer to make sure the car has seat belts.
Well, that's what he said. He said, and I can't begin to explain to you how difficult it was to pull these receptacles out of the seat. And we're not talking, it's normal for it to be pushed down a little bit, right? This was, I had to pull the seat fabric back and try and bend this rubber part of the buckle up. I mean, I worked so hard on two of them because I realized I'm driving around a long weekend with people in the back, and they're like, where are the seatbelts? I'm like, just grab them. They're just down in there, and they weren't, right? So I felt terrible. They didn't have seatbelts. I was able to get 2 out of the 3 out, and Mike Crossan got the 3rd one out. And he said he's just never seen that. But he also said during check-in, while he didn't notice that, and he does admit that's an oversight on his part, he also found some other issues. He said he noticed that the carpet under the pedals was bunched up. He pulled it back, and the sound padding was like wadded up. And it was clearly meant to go up the firewall and around the steering column hole in the firewall. And so he had to drop the dash panel and then install it. And he said it didn't look like anyone had been in there. It was just never installed correctly from the factory. So, I mean, there's some egregious things with this car that I think owners would be pretty upset about.
So, I mean, we're putting our break-in miles on it now. If you want to go to cr.org and read our first drive on it, you can hear more about some of the issues that we had and the little sort of annoyances and some of the good things too.
The driving range is pretty good.
Yeah.
And also I just, back to kind of controls, you open the door, it shows giant icons, like what the current battery state of charge is, what your predicted driving range is. There's a lot of EVs they don't make it so obvious when you open the door on the instrument.
Normal door handles, for example.
Yeah. But a giant charging door that feels very flimsy, and it's interesting. We got some ice and snow here. I'm curious as to how it's going to hold up.
Sure. There's like a step forward and a step back. So it's not moving. For example, visibility is a little off. I mean, it's got massive A-pillars.
Right.
It has a sloping roof. It goes back to a very steeply sloped rear window that's small, but has a rear wiper, which unlike many EVs and the Cadillac Lyriq, has a rear wiper. But of course, the rear wiper is about this tall. It's like from an old GM.
Oh, you mean it's tiny?
It's tiny. So it's
like a windshield wiper for the headlights.
It's like a headlight wiper. It's like an old Mercedes-Benz
It has
headlight
like
wiper.
a tiny little window of dirt away.
It goes like this. So it's maybe this much of a space that so you're looking through. It fits right between the head restraints. But it's this kind of. It just makes you wonder again, like, how do these things get through?
Yeah, the rear seat's really comfortable. As long as you have a seatbelt, it's really comfortable.
Yeah, as long as
there's actually pretty good room back there.
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive. I personally didn't find the front seat that comfortable. It's just lacks some leg support. And I ended up having to, at least you can tilt the leading edge of the bottom cushion up. I had to tilt it all the way up to its max to feel like my legs weren't just splaying out whenever.
Doesn't really have a pocket.
No, it doesn't have a pocket.
You sit on it.
Which is kind of a bummer. And for, an RS or whatever, you'd expect that this is, it looks like it would be a pretty hot car to drive. It's just...
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like new pony car war, like the Mach-E and the Blaze, whatever. The Camara's going away. Is it the Blazer? But no. But that's the other thing too. The entry level version is the 1LT. Well, that's delayed. So this is no longer when it was first pitched. It was sort of a semi-affordable SUV from a mainstream brand, and now it's kind of it's not that. It's kind of a wait and see. We're going to be following ours. We're putting our 2,000 break-in miles on it heroically. People are braving that. No, we're braving the.
I didn't know you were talking about braving the weather.
Flickering dashboards and everything that comes our way. We're going to get that software update done as we always do. We're living with it the same way that everyone else who bought one is living with it, and we're going to test it, and we're going to see. which is going to be interesting as well. And we'll have all that information for you at cr.org. And if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll be the first to hear about it when we get that full published review on this vehicle. So yeah, on to our audience questions. If you have a question for us, send it to talkingcars@icloud.com. And if you want to be like Hal from PA, Pennsylvania, I believe that is.
Yes.
I believe that is
Thanks for
Pennsylvania.
clearing that up.
Okay. Yep. If you want to be like Hal,
The Keystone State,
yes,
if you will.
I've heard that.
Yes.
I've heard that. You can send us a video, and Hal sent us a video. So let's look away from us and look to Hal.
Hi, Talking Cars. What do you think is going to be the prevalent fuel source for cars 10 or 20 years from now, considering the pollution concerns with gas, electrical grid, and lithium supply and disposal issues for EVs, and the lack of hydrogen vehicles and infrastructure to support them?
It's a good question. It's one we get often. We've heard about, all these pushes to get electric vehicles, electrification. They're worldwide. They're not just in the United States. Some of them are at the state level. But, it's pretty clear, and automakers are telling us too, EVs are happening.
Right.
So, Monty, what do you think is going to be that dominant fuel source 10 years, 20 years down the road?
Yeah, well, first of all, predicting the future is way out of my purview.
We've seen your Super Bowl pick.
Yeah, this is just not good. But I think the first question is, does HAL mean prevalent fuel source or prevalent type of powertrain? You know what I mean? Like fuel source and powertrain are a little bit different. Like, is he talking, is it going to be prevalent gas, hybrids, PHEVs, or EVs 10 to 20 years down the road? And I think if that's what he's talking about, I think, yeah, for the next 10 years, you can bet gas-powered cars, this is my opinion, are still going to be the most dominant in terms of new vehicle sales by a percentage for the next 10 years. Now, whether the gas-powered vehicles will still be predominant by, say, 2045, I think that's a different story. That's maybe the billion-dollar question, right? That if you have the answer, that's going to be awesome. But a lot will depend on what this individual states do, right? Like how many force, the new car sales by a certain time, whether it's 2035 or whatever, to be EV and PHEV. We don't know that yet, right? So it's a lot to come. But if you're looking at as far as dominant fuel source, I think, oil is going to be the dominant fuel source still for the next at least 10 years, probably 15 years, and maybe longer, because look, there's 280 million cars on the roads in the U.S. right now. That's a lot of vehicles, and a lot of them aren't going away anytime soon. So you're still going to need regular old gasoline to fuel a lot of vehicles for a long, long time.
Yeah, that's just the U.S. I mean, we can't get the infrastructure in the richest nation in the world.
You mean for like EVs?
For EVs,
and
a charging
vehicles,
infrastructure, right, or hydrogen. I mean, just imagine, I'm just thinking Central America, just the easiest thing. Areas that are in, political turmoil at times, how are you going to have people who are relying on third, fourth, fifth-hand cars shipped there from America or from another nation? How are you electrifying that? So, I mean, that's why I totally agree with gas. I find it interesting, Honda just recently announced that the next Civic's going to have another natural gas version. The Honda and Toyota still kind of play in that they're still going on the fuel cell kick. And, certainly fuel's faster.
Yeah.
It's a different supply than the electric grid is different type of supply system.
But it acts like an electric vehicle.
But it acts like an electric vehicle,
which
right.
a lot of people like.
Right. It's not a battery. It's a fuel cell, but it's the same car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I could see that really playing up, particularly when you get these events that get people in a tizzy, such as Chicago's Tesla charger,
getting-
going, the network went down and people were waiting, and even at regular chargers now, you see people in ride share, they're taking up the chargers because they have a in the winter, the battery life isn't the same. They're occupying chargers so that they could just do their job. I mean, these issues are going to force people to want to adopt something else. And you also see a lot of countries and also states pulling back a bit on the whole, no gas cars ever. Whoa, wait a second. Yeah. Let's rethink this.
Right.
It's hard to predict, but I could see the fuel cell world growing.
I think something that's huge is that basically everything should be a hybrid now. I don't think 10 years ago, not the case. But now every hybrid we test is, almost every hybrid we test is better than the non-hybrid version. Gets crazy good fuel economy. But if there were nothing but a hybrid, like Toyota's doing with the Camry, if there were no choice but a hybrid, if everything were hybridized across the board, you're going from 20 miles a gallon to 40. You're going from 25 to 50. And that's a huge, huge difference. So I think that, this idea of pure electrification, yeah, you're right. Cars are going to be on the road. No one's coming to take your used car. No one's coming to take your gas-powered car. That's not happening. So we're going to have...
Except maybe you want your...
Yeah, someone might be coming to take my... Yeah, it would it would be...
One of your old Renaults?
NPR or something would be coming with a charity. Yeah. It's a transition technology, but this is a transitional time. No one is saying, you go buy an EV right now, but it's happening. So, all right, good answers there. And if we could predict the future,
that would be awesome.
That would be really awesome. That'd be really awesome. I predict we'll have a question from Greg in Manitoba, Canada. Look, here it is.
You are amazing.
Karnak right here. I'm in a predicament with an aging 2013 Honda Accord that is a daily commuter. I love the car, but it's close to 300,000 kilometers. So with the used car market so crazy, I'm actually thinking of ordering a new car as no used cars are available on the lot. I'm considering a Toyota Camry hybrid, like what we're talking about, but I like the idea of all-wheel drive, which will be available on the 2025 model. Should I wait or should I order a 2024? Any other suggestions? Reliability is important to me as well as fuel economy. John, what say you?
So I would research what the wheel fitment is going to be on the 2025 Camry. So tire size and such. Keep his car. Make sure he has snows because he wants all-wheel drive and he's in Canada. And I'm just going to make the assumption that snow traction is a concern. Run his car until he can get to 2025 with all-wheel drive, and then you also have a set of snows that will fit on that car.
So if the tires fit,
if the same tires fit, that would be just like, it would be a stopgap. You're getting something. I mean, I'm assuming he has snow tires, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just runs all seasons. But if you're just concerned enough for all-wheel drive, then get a set of snows for that. Make sure that you can find the specs and see what the wheel sizes are going to be. And that way you could kind of transition over. Look, I don't know his daily commute. I don't know how far he's driving. I don't know if he bought it 2 years ago and it had 110,000 miles and then he put a ton on. But given the information, I would try to string it out and get that car that he wants instead of settling for something. And then, and the snow tires with the new Camry, I mean, their all-wheel drive system isn't, a mechanical all-wheel drive either. I mean, we saw issues with the RAV4 in snow. So I would say that, getting a hybrid that's going to have some sort of electric all-wheel drive system running in the rear wheels, and it's going to be a front-wheel drive bias anyway. But the snows will help.
It's meant to kind of get you out when you're stuck. But it's not. You're not going to be driving a Wrangler.
100%. So this will just be like an extra cushion. Like, okay, now you also have that traction. So,
what do you think?
So I think the easy answer might be something like a Honda CR-V hybrid, and I say that because you can get it with all-wheel drive. It has slightly more ground clearance for plowing through snow, but Greg seems like a car guy, right? He's in a
sedan man.
Yeah, exactly, sedan man. So I would say honestly, go ahead and just get the Honda Accord hybrid right now. If you're for me, comparing the way the two motor hybrid system that Honda uses versus what Toyota uses with their electronic continuously variable transmission, to me it's, I don't want to say night and day, but the Accord drives so much nicer. It's just a nicer driving car than the Camry hybrid. And if you look at our road test score, that bears out. The Accord hybrid has a higher road test score, not necessarily a higher overall score, but a higher road test score than the Camry hybrid, which means it drives better. So yeah, you can't get it with all-wheel drive, but I'd say kind of what you were saying, get a good set of winter tires, and you're honestly fine.
As much as I love the new Hondas, especially those interiors, I think that the Camry hybrid is a real. I really like the Camry hybrid, and I'm excited. The 2025 refresh. It looks like it's gotten even a little bit better. 180,000 miles, 300,000 kilometers. I know that's kind of like a milestone on there, or a kilometer stone, I guess. But it's that's sort of it's a big number. But on this car, it's not that big.
Right.
You could drive this thing for another 5 years. So don't worry. I mean, it's the Accord is historically in our reliability surveys and our which cars last the longest. It's way up there. You can hold on to this car for as long as you can. You're not in a rush, so plan. And I'd wait and get the 2025. It sounds like you have kind of like this car. Stick with your Accord for now, and it'll be even more fun when you get into something that you really, really want, not something you kind of settled for.
Yeah,
so that's
wait.
what I say.
Yeah.
Wait, exactly.
Team wait.
All right. So, Greg, I hope that helped. I hope you haven't already bought a car and you're listening to this and you're
Or turned us off.
Yeah. Anyhow, if you have a question, whether it's in miles, kilometers, please send it along to us at talkingcars@icloud.com. Thanks so much for talking cars with us. We'll talk again soon.